Just ready to get started.
I don't think it's
Can you hear it now?
It was on the right side before. Why don't you try using the one that Roman has? See if that Let me call the IT guy and see.
They were just working.
I know. It's always happening.
There we go. Can you hear me now? Hello, hello, hello. Anyone in the back? Can you hear me? No.
It was working for one
We
second.
have volume control.
It sounds like it's kind of working. A little bit.
Yeah.
If I really hold it up. Okay.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
And we have IT here. And does that microphone work?
Yeah, here we go.
So we will start.
Check, yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, thank you all for being here. I have a feeling as I stand right in front of Roman, I have a feeling that I get blinded. I'll just hide over here. I think people decided to put this session at the very end of the day because they knew you would walk away inspired because we have great panelists sharing their programs about how they've built composting literally from the ground up. And I just really appreciate you all being here to share your story. And this came about from last year's session because I heard from multiple people like, oh, I really got interested in composting from what I heard at the last conference. So it's like, cool, let's keep the storytelling going. I jumped right into it. I'm Jenny Stephenson with EPA Region 9 Zero Waste Section. I worked on tribal solid waste for about 10 years, and I absolutely love composting. So let's go into the next slide. And I only have one slide, but I'll tell you why I love composting. Roman, can you advance those for me? Oh, here's what we're going to do. Here's who we have. Me, Jenny Stephenson. And then we have 4 tribal program profiles. And what's really cool is you'll see from their stories of how they represent really different approaches to building their composting programs. So next slide. So why I love composting. So from a waste management perspective, food waste and organics comprise at least 25 to 40% of our traditional trash stream, and it's heavy. So if you control your waste and you can keep organics out of the waste, you can reduce your landfill costs. The real reason, it's also a very potent climate pollutant, because when organics, particularly food waste, or yard trim, get into landfills, they degrade in that lack of oxygen environment and produce methane, a potent greenhouse gas, contributing to climate change. Food waste alone accounts for more than half of the emissions from our municipal solid waste landfills. The other thing that's really great about composting is that it's entirely within your control. You don't have to rely on global recycling markets. You don't need multi-million-dollar infrastructure investments. It's stuff that you can do within your community, on your land, to return those nutrients back to the soil and store carbon enriching the soil. So I'm so excited to turn it over now to Roman. I'll ask each of our panelists. Oh, you should be able to. Okay.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that was odd.
Well, each of our panelists will introduce themselves and share their story for about 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up with some time for questions. We might be tight on questions, but I invite you to hit them all up with additional questions. So, Roman.
Hello, you guys can hear me okay? Just leave the mic. My name is Roman Roga. I'm the Environmental Programs Manager for the Oceanic Community. This presentation was actually composed by the person that runs that program through our GAP, Brandy Nelson, and she wasn't able to make it because of internal travel policy stuff. So I'm here and I'll present on her behalf. So what you're going to see in the into the PowerPoint presentation, how we got started, growing the project challenges, future, and then we put questions. But obviously, I'm going to pass the mic, so all questions. So yeah. So our now water quality specialist started the program in 2019, and he started the program literally with a tumbler right there. That's how it all started. We, as I said, we began in 2019. We officially added the composting project to our work plan in 2022. Like I said, Ross then went to the water program, to the 106. We hired Brandy to come on and to really, her challenge when she came on, I literally told her, here's your work plan, best of luck. I got other things I got to take care of. If you have questions, let me know. You think I'm joking, but that's literally what I said. She was like, what do I do? And I said, put your stamp on it, make it yours. Leave a legacy to this program. So she was like, okay. So she looked at what was going on. What some of the issues that we had was, I'll get to those. She did tell me to put it here. Okay, cool. Some of the issues that we had was we weren't getting the composting piles hot enough. And so we were getting a lot of insects, we were getting a lot of other additional growth, and it just wasn't working out well. So she had to literally go back and evaluate how to get that temperature to about 150 degrees, so we could eliminate that seed germination that was actually happening with some of the compost and some of the things that we were doing. So after several trials, she determined it was a 2-to-1 ratio. And one of the other things that she, as she was growing this, one of the other things that we were having was some of our other programs were coming through and moving it or disturbing it and some of that type of stuff. So she had to put some signage on here. And how do we move the amount of compost that we were generating? So that was a big, huge challenge because it was done initially by a shovel. So this is a funny slide. Since the project's inception, Brandy has demonstrated remarkable resilience, tackling each challenge head on, learning from every experience. COVID-19 presented significant hurdles. We had a restaurant that was from the casino that we started to get some food scrap from. Well, because of COVID, they closed that down. So we had a shortage of food scraps. Our department was constrained by people. Some people could come in on certain days, others couldn't come in, and so they were flip-flopping. And so it was just hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. Some of the things that we deal with out there in Arizona, obviously, are the extreme heat, but we also have some very high winds. And so you can see what some of the winds did. There's the compost pile plant, and we were using some of the compost to plant and do some testing, and literally just that was just the winds that took down our little smaller greenhouses. I know we have 10 minutes, so I'm just rushing through and just kind of.
No, you still got 5. You're
Okay.
good.
I got 5 minutes. So here's some of the numbers that we were seeing. So far, each year, we've steadily grown. And that literally is from one restaurant, and two community members. We're trying to do some trials. If we give some of these buckets out to the community members, how are we gonna get them back? So far, they've been delivering them. We're looking at different ways. Whether it's gonna be a bucket exchange, what does that look like? So the graphs here show that consistent yearly increase that we've been experiencing and really enjoying to see, because it's a lot of work, truly is. But once you get the program running, it's pretty simple. It's a lot of fun. She loves to go out there, even though it's 120 degrees in the summer, working those composts. So those are some of the numbers that we're seeing here. Like I said, we're now at over 4,000 pounds of food scrap that we pulled out, and made some significant amount of compost out of that. And it actually works. Our compost actually grows from seed, so it actually is working. So the future, what are we looking at for the future? There's some thoughts that we are looking at. So in this picture, down in here, this is our current footprint down here. Our compost pile is approximately in this area. It's a small little area. Most of this area is paved, but there's some dirt area in this background. Back in here, we have some, we're located next to a wastewater treatment plant. So that's some of the overflows that are in the back there. But there's these about 9 acres behind that. It's just natural and completely untouched. We're actually looking about if we grow, if we can't, right now our council is not wanting to add on additional people to our program because they're worried about grants and what that looks like. They don't like funding people under grants, and EPA, for the most part, funds people under these grants. And they don't want to put a person in the seat for 2 years or 3 years, and then the potential for the tribe having to pick that up or release the person. So we're looking at, some options. We've been looking way into the pros and cons. We acquire this permanent location. It will create 3 to 5 jobs. Again, community councils, I'm not sure about that. But it provides some significant growth for this additional land. We can really, really full on blow up and grow this composting project and have all homes and departments participating. So, and it's a blank canvas. We could really, really develop it how we want to develop it. Some of the cons, it's labor intensive, obviously. Even though it's a pro, it's also a con, that it is a blank canvas. And we're gonna have to, it's working where it's at now, but will that same setup work, just half a mile down the road, right? And then there's some utilities and fencing and a small office that we would probably have to need to store a lot of the equipment that we have. Now, if we got an industrial composter, we wouldn't need as many jobs, or as many people to run it, and we would have a quick turnaround on the compost. But some of the cons, obviously, is the cost or something like that, the cost to run. And then the long-term benefits. We don't know what that compost is really going to do. Does it really work, or is it just eliminating food waste to go into the food stream or into the waste stream, but it doesn't really work, right? We don't know. And they all say that it works and it's great and it does all those things, but what's the reality of that? And so it's that initial cost. What is that going to look like? And the benefit. That's the quick one. So anyway, that's what we're doing.
Hello everyone, my name is Diego Cordero. I work for the Standing Ed's Traumatic Environmental Office. So one of the kind of prompts we had was talking about, how we got our program started and all that. And it made me think, the environmental office has actually been doing a zero waste program way longer than I've been there. But I was thinking about it, and my very first day was actually, at powwow, we used to sort all of the stuff. So all the trash cans, we pull them all and sort everything. And that was my very first day on. And I wanted to impress everybody there. So I jumped on that slime table and I sorted it all out. But the food scraps did go to get composted. So that's like, I was like, that's one of the first things I did. Actually, the first thing I did on the job. So over the years, we've actually had a number of different kind of ways that we've utilized composting. Obviously, events was a big part of it. We don't do so much of that anymore, partly because we have a smaller staff than at the time. But we used to do a lot of getting food scraps from events and things like that. Then we'd also do stuff with the tribal administration building and things like that, collect their food scraps. But now the majority of what we do is actually what I kind of colloquially call the yellow bin compost program, which is we've actually started a program with residences on the reservation to every week collect their food scraps. And then we actually take it out and I'll show you some. Every week we take it out and we have a thermophilic composting, which is just using bacteria and microbes. But we actually have a vermicomposting program, which most of this is getting directed to, which is using worms to process all that food, which happens a little faster. So that's kind of the direction we have taken with it, is to do that. We had initially planned out for 10 families on the reservation. That was our goal. The reason we chose 10 is because that's our work truck there, and I measured out. I looked up online how big those bins were, and I measured out the bed of my truck, and that's how many I could take. So 10. We're currently at 9, so we're doing pretty good. We've had fluctuations in the past where people will join the program and kind of drop out of the program. We've been doing it a few years now. But we literally go, you see these bins that we have, these yellow bins. They actually have like instructions printed on the side there. And we'll go and we'll collect, we did outreach, we did initial outreach to see if there was interest, and we got a number of people that were interested, a number of families that were interested. And so we actually give them these bins, and then we have 2 per household basically. So we'll give them the bins, and then they fill it up, and then on Tuesday mornings we pick them up and we give them a clean one, and then we take this out actually to our tribal native plant nursery, and that's where I do my composting operation out there, and that gets composted. And then we've been collecting the vermicompost specifically, and I haven't actually used it in the nursery yet. I'm thinking about maybe offering it as like something to the participants if they want to use it in their garden. It's just kind of give another little incentive to keep for people to do that. But it can be used obviously as plant nutrients in our native plant nursery. So you can see my old coworker there, she's actually weighing it. We have the scale, so we're actually taking data. We're kind of roughly estimating what the makeup is of it. We weigh it, we have a whole data sheet, and then we take it out to our nursery and we put it in the vermicompost or the thermophilic compost, and then we clean these out so they'll be ready for the next week. And I think we haven't done this year's, we haven't seen how much weight we've done this year, but I think last year we were at 1,800 pounds more or less, so a good amount for 10 families over about a year. So yeah, this is an example of the thermophilic composting. Like after Halloween, we get a big bump. I just have it out there kind of in chicken wire like that. So we have right now we have a little like corn patch out there so that we can have people come out there and like have a little autumn experience. And then after that, of course, all the green stuff, especially with the growing and thermophilic composting there. It's So as a previous speaker was saying, part of the thing is like, you gotta get it hot is the main thing. I mean, you gotta, my main issue where I am is that, during the hot season, it's dry. And then during the cool season, it's wet. So I actually really like when, in the wintertime, when all the weeds pop up out there, because I'll spend all day out there, with the weed whacker just knocking all the grass back. And that's my nitrogen source for my compost there. But then in the summertime, I'm always struggling to find nitrogen. I did find out apparently coffee grounds make really good nitrogen, and everywhere loves coffee. You can go to all the Starbucks and local, they'll just give it to you because they're gonna have to throw it out. The main thing I'd say about both of these, my main issue that I run into is it's labor intensive, especially when you're trying to filter it all out. We're trying to sift it all. That'd be the main thing is like, it's not really that, in my experience, the way we do it, it's not really that expensive in terms of material cost. It's just, having the time to do it. And for me, it's not my only responsibility. So oftentimes, it kind of gets put on the back burner. So it would be better if it was able to be, if I was more on top of it. Here's our vermicompost. So you can see that big, long kind of trough. We basically, put down cardboard on the bottom, and then we put down some stuff in there, so some medium basically or initially, and we put about 3 pounds of worms in there. These are red regular worms. And then every week, we've been collecting all the food scraps, putting them in there. The idea is the worms eat it. So we'll fill up the first half, and then once we feel like that's filled up enough, we'll stop filling up that half. We'll go over to the other half and start putting it in there. The worms will eat everything in the first half, and then they'll migrate over to the second half. And then once they've all migrated out of there, we can sift out the worm castings. That stuff's pretty desired. It's really good stuff. So me and my coworkers there, but also one thing that I do is that at my nursery out there, I have monthly volunteer days. I really like to get this done on those monthly volunteer days because I have a bunch of extra hands and people are fascinated with composting. They like getting their hands in it and all that. So if you're able to kind of schedule like a regular event that people know is going to happen, I've found that that's really helpful. And then on the left there, you can see it's basically that's when I've left it there for a while. The worms have presumably all migrated out to the other side. Obviously, one of the issues that we've had with this vermicompost system is that one, there's certain things that people eat a lot of that are vermicidal. So things like garlic and onions and citrus, worms don't like it. People love it. Worms don't like it. I'm thinking about, I'm trying to figure out how much I can ask of the participants in terms of sorting. Because I can still compost that stuff, but I don't want it in the worm bin. The other thing is, the worms, they don't have any teeth, so they're not going to be able to eat anything like rinds or eggshells or anything like that. Again, that could be composted, but you can see that's one reason we have to sift it, because there's still a lot of it left, even when the worms have left. And we don't sift it out perfectly, but we get a pretty good product there at the end. So that's a short overview of all of our yellow bin program. Thank you. That's my information.
All right, hello, I'm Wesley Dunn. I'm the environmental coordinator for the Chicken Ranch and Community Walking into California. And this is our composting program that we put together. Mostly my boss, she designed it, and I'm just the guy on the ground moving all the stuff around. And gets to do the presentations. So the first thing we looked at was not only composting the food waste, but trying to reduce the food waste at the source. And how we did that was my boss found this awesome system. It's called the Winnow system. And it's an AI system that we put in the kitchens. And you see the trash can there. It's actually sitting on a scale. And beneath that, where it says prep waste, there's a camera. So whenever there's food waste coming out of the kitchen and they put it in this trash can, it takes a picture of it, weighs it, and then categorizes it, and then we get a printout. So you can see here that, so fruit salad, it just gives you a little notice. Okay, the fruit salad was thrown away today, 13 portions. If this happened every day, it'll cost you $66 a week, and then it'll emit 34 or 31 tons of CO2. So it pretty much it really holds the kitchen staff accountable. And there's actually another one of these scales on the other side. It's for the food waste, for the prep, not for the prep, but for the plate waste. And so what that does is when it does the same thing, but then it helps the kitchen this way on the portion size. That way they're not making the portions too big, so we can reduce food waste there too. So you can access this whenever you want, but every couple weeks you get a food waste audit or food waste report, and it'll tell you. So you can see here, the lettuce was our #1 item, thrown away 22 pounds that week at 109 pounds. And then the two things we look at here are the inventory and the overproduction. Those are the things we can kind of control by talking with the kitchen staff and looking at sales trends. Like if they're buying too much lettuce or they're producing too much. And this is how we track all of our compost and our edible food. And every day you can see that like we're throwing away or we're composting like 180 pounds of food waste. And then the edible food, actually, I didn't mention this. So instead of like what we found when we first started the system, what we found was like they're throwing away cases of lettuce because they had like one blemish in it or things like that. And instead of them throwing it away now, with us talking with the staff, they put it in the kitchen, the refrigerator, and we get it, and then we manually input it, and we'll just take that one head of lettuce out or whatever, just a little bit wilted, and then we donate it to local food banks. And you can see like, so the edible food recovered on like 100 pounds. These big numbers, like 559 pounds, those are because we actually partnered with the food bank also. So whenever they have excess food, we go pick it up and then we find places to donate it. So since we started this program in October 2022, we have composted 56,000 pounds of food. And we've donated 20,000 pounds, over 20,000 pounds. And when we first started, we started small. We had this vermicomposting bin, and we had this home biogas. That's our original garden down there. And but the system, the program grew so fast that we had to start composting different ways. And this right here is one of our electric vehicles that we got through the edible food recovery grant from Cal Recycle. You can see all the food in the back of the truck, get ready to go be donated. Another part of that grant was workforce development. So we partnered with Resiliency Village, which is a transitional housing for homeless kids. And we employed these two guys for 20 hours a week, and we made them do outreach to everybody, and we put them to work, and they were our delivery drivers, and it was really great working with them. So here's a picture of our vans. This picture down here in the corner is some of the produce we grew. I'll show on the next slide. So what we do with the compost, well, here's just some more of the people we partnered with. So what we decided to do with the compost is we wanted to close the loop so we wanted to use the food scraps to make compost to grow more food for the casino, for the tribal members, and for the community around us. So there's all kinds of field dirt from when they're building the new casino, so we had to bring all the dirt, and we started a permaculture farm. And that's us out there getting it ready, those are the bed we designed and built. And then this is a picture of the farm now. This was just like last week, I took it, these are all cabbages and broccolis, and those are tomatoes, and those are zucchinis in the background. So our composting process is pretty easy. We pick up the trash cans, when we take them off the scale, it gives us the weight, we take them in the back of our truck. And then there's a lot of different ways to compost, but we found, we start doing windrows, just a long windrow like that, and we just back the truck up each day, and then we'll just build the pile longer and longer and longer. Then when the end of the pile heats up, we'll turn it in. And then we'll just work our way down. So this is the other side of the farm, that's me. That's like the bed of onions, those are lettuce, carrots, basil. We partnered with the casino kitchen and we asked them, what are your 10 most used vegetables? And they gave us a list, and that's what we've been growing. And so we grew so much that we don't only supply the casino kitchen, we supply all the tribal members, we supply the daycare, and then all the access, we actually take to food banks and we take to nonprofits. And then this, we were able to get the money to build this through a California Alliance for Community Composting grant. And I think it was like a $5,000 infrastructure grant that we were able to build these blocks. And we plan on doing this without the tractor. Like we don't have a tractor or anything yet, but we built this in hopes to get a tractor in the future, which we will get one soon. And each one of these bins the first 3 are 12 by 12, and the last one is 16 by 12. So each one of those bins will hold about 25 yards of compost, and the last one will hold about 45. Thank you.
Y'all are cruising.
Okay, I'm Gregg Young from Pine Valley Tribe. We're in Northern California, about 150 miles north of here. And it's really cool hearing these pilot projects that start out and then they're expanding. Because you see, I started out really big and got a lot smaller. But a lot of experience, and we go over also some technical aspects of compost and things, but I also wish through those, letting know those and address. So in Northern California, I first got involved in 1979 in composting with a company, and we had 12 sites around the state. I was the district manager, and we did agricultural waste. And so we had these are called aerators or windrow turners. So we used a windrow system, and so our site up north was in Petaluma, which is about 100 miles north of here. And it was the first load of compost going out in 1979, and I was also in charge of Napa, Sonoma Lake, and Mendocino counties, working with the farmers doing their soil testing and selling compost and so on. So, and then in 1989, I ended up buying equipment, which is not recommended when you're a biologist to get into this thing. And then I teamed up with the solid waste of Willett, and we started the yard waste composting program for the city of Ukiah. And then these are some articles and things that are going on there. So this is the old EPA of a definition of compost, and I won't read it off to you, but it's very long and involved. It basically involves a whole lot of stuff. Air, let it heat up, and you produce carbon dioxide, mineral, and stabilized organic matter. Compost. The state of California for a while was saying that anaerobic decomposition system was composting, and it's not. You end up with a fairly sludgy material that's toxic to plants and things that needs further aeration and things. And now they have changed that definition a little. So we'll go through all that. So Here's a definition I came up with that works really well. It's aerobically decomposed organic matter. You just need 4 words. You say digested or decomposed. And that's one of the aerators that our company had at our larger site. Up where I was, we do 5,000 ton batches per year. And then this machine would turn 10,000 tons a day and it moves around. And, okay, but then when you get on a farm scale or a bigger scale, then my farms are messed up, but with a bucket loader, you can do about 100 tons a year pretty easily. And even a small one, you can get larger bucket loaders and do the turning. And again, then when you get into windrow systems and things, you need a aerator and a watering system. And so, again, there's the newer farm service large system. They're still going in the Central Valley of California. We probably make about 100,000 tons a year. There's our aerator that we got with Potawatomi Tribe. And there's different watering systems with tanks and tractors. Well, I just put soaker hoses on it, turn it on and wet it down, and then we run the aerator. And there's a lot of different farm size aerators. Okay, and then again, if you get a commercial production and want to sell it, then at least with farmers, you're going to need spreaders and things. So I rented these spreaders and maintained them for longer than I like to think about. But, and you can also hand distribute them through orchards and vineyards and garden programs. And you're going to need a mechanic to deal with that. There's my spreader that sat in Napa Valley for 6 months, and in a wet winter, I probably got out there, my truck and driving through fields and everything. Okay, again, here's a long definition that it's kind of controversial whether you need to inoculate, and you don't have to. But some materials, especially if you come from several sources, if you have yard waste and manures and food scraps and things, then they come in with microbes and things that, and everybody, you've seen this, they will start composting. But if you just deal with one waste, like just chicken manure, like I can't remember the name of the large chicken grower in California, they produce a compost, or grape pomace, they've got a lot of grape pomace, there's red and green, the white grapes. Okay, here's the waste that's been commercially composted in California. And then here's the ones that I've worked with. And I even have an orchards farmer that I set up composting. He has, he's a certified organic grower, so all his boxes and everything he wants to put in the compost. So all his inks were approved. They're biodegradable inks and approved for use in the composting system. And then there are a couple of types of inoculants, at least 2 and probably more, but there's the biodynamic one that was developed back in the 20s by Rudolf Steiner, and it's biodynamic growers use. And there's a fungally dominant one that's more recent. I've worked with both of these. And again, they definitely help in some things, but if you put on good compost, it's going to make really good changes to your soils. So, and then the temperatures. I was taught originally that the thermophilic stage, you build it up, you don't want it above 130 degrees, but actually now working with the fungally dominant one, they pick it up to 150 degrees, and then they examine it under microscopes, and they have a whole system of different organisms they're looking for, and they say that 150 degrees is fine. Frequency of turning into this system, most of the regulations now, say you're supposed to do it every 3 days or so, but to achieve pathogen reduction, but that's the engineering mindset. Actually, what it is, it's a series of fermentations, and there's different organisms that come in early, and then ones that come in late and everything, and they actually outcompete the pathogen. So it's not just a sterilization with a certain temperature. The idea is it's a long process and it has all these organisms. The other thing I like to say is it's kind of like wine. You make it from grapes, it's a fermentation process, and you can't go back. Wine is not grape juice. It's grapes and grape juice. And compost is not all the things that it was made out of. The other thing they found through research is that they started out teeming with decomposers and diseases and things that come in with the crop waste, whether they're using tomato waste or the shows walnut waste and peaches and nectarines are in there. What happens is that they start breaking down and what we call suppressive organisms that kill them start building up. So you can actually improve disease resistance in the field. I work with people who make compost tea. There's various ways to do that. Some of the misconceptions about compost is it's low in nutrients. It actually isn't, especially if it's made well. Just compared to a bag of concentrated fertilizer, it's low, but you put on a lot more of it. So it actually will compete with commercial fertilizer. There's another compost company up north, 2 to 5 tons per acre provides maintenance amount of nutrients. Sometimes you need a little more, but it works really well. Water quality of a site. So this shows a site, and this is the person I worked with, and he ended up starting a competing facility, and that he's much better capitalized and better. So he has to have a runoff retention pond, a 1 acre covered storage area, and it has to park of material in the winter. This is in Mendocino County with 35 inches of rain in the winter. But here's another option, is have your staging area and your windrows and do it for 1 to 2 years, and then you rotate those around and you grow corn or cotton or alfalfa or something that removes nitrogen and nutrients behind it, and you just rotate around the field. And if you really wanted to, you could put in monitoring wells and everything like that. Then real quick, future research. So at Potter Valley, we have a camp out every year, and we use compostable plates, compostable forks, spoons, knife, everything, and mix it with the food scraps, and then we put it in our windrow. So first we did turning with a loader, but now we have a wood chipper, we have a loader, and I have to put in a plug. The EPA about half of this for us, and half of this for us, and half of the area.
Through GAP?
Through GAP, we were lucky we had excess funds, and some of it was supplemental funds. So now we have using the windrow system for the waste from the camp out and everything. And
Well, here.
Well, thank you. I didn't mean to rush you all, but you rocked it on time, and we still have 7 minutes for questions. I do want to put Wesley on the spot because last month you presented at a composting workshop and you shared the amount of money that the casino saves a month, like over $100,000.
Yeah, that money, that number wasn't too accurate. But we are saving the casino somewhere around like $50,000 a year, and then the food donated is saving money also.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. Okay, I heard a lot of people like nodding their heads and like jiving with what you all were saying. Let's take questions. Anyone have a question? Oh, come on, y'all. Yes. And while we get there, I'll just do a plug. Roman mentioned some capital investment for composting. Composting is an eligible activity for the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling Grant, and we have a session on that tomorrow at 9:30.
Great. My name is Gavin Oswald. I'm on Tech Drive. When you compost, I know you use a lot of food scrap. Do you also use newspaper or paper boxes?
we did, when I was doing it, with the solid waste company doing the yard waste, he said, I've got a load of recycled newsprint, but it got wet and they don't want it. And he composted, so we set it up in the windrow, and I knew it would, there was no problem with that. But then we thought, what about the ink? Well, so then I researched it then, and so black ink actually it used to be lead-based, but that's been banned years ago, so it's carbon-based, so it's no problem. And the colored ink actually comes from the yellow, it comes from two metals. One's barium, which you inject in your bloodstream to do heart studies, and the other is copper. And so it really is a problem with colored ink. I suppose plastic covered paper might have some problems. And that was actually one thing I wanted to mention, because that's research that's needed, because now, big push for biodegradable plates and, these corn, plastic, and other plastic things. Well, they have been approved by organic certification organizations to be included in compost. So we need to close that loop so that we can, compost all these things and not worry about, parts per trillion and this and that. But basically, yes, it's good news. Okay, Forky, let's go.
I have 3 questions, I'll make them quick. Diego, your worm bed that you showed was plastic, and I'm just wondering, is there a difference? Is it plastic because it's easier to clean up? Can you use a wood structure for permaculture?
Yeah, I don't think that the material is important. Actually, there's 2 things I would say though. The thing that, and I'm gonna do this year, but the thing that is more important than the material is you gotta keep it out of the elements. The worms are actually really sensitive to getting dried out, to getting rained on, to getting too hot, to getting too cold. So I'm actually gonna put like a carport over that, mostly just to keep it from getting rained on and because the sun is so beating out there. That would be my main thing. That's what I would do differently about that. But you can get them in wood or this kind of plastic. We got it kind of from a guy who was manufacturers in Detroit or something. We out there. He makes that's like this thing is. But yeah, it's a metal. Ours is a metal frame with a opaque plastic side.
Second question was, there was a 3-to-1 ratio and a 2-to-1 ratio. What is those, I know wood chips and what are the 3 and what's the 1, or what's the 2 and what's the 1?
Well, it has to do with the carbon nitrogen ratio, and there should be a green waste and brown waste when we're talking about yard waste and things. So you need high nitrogen things. And I don't know if I get it that, but I think that California Solid Waste Management Board has a lot of information on that. It's get hometown, but mostly pretty big in California. We would, with manures and other things, really have that problem. But if you have too much nitrogen, you lose ammonia, and that's not good. If you don't have enough, it starts and it stops. So, I don't know, do you want to answer them?
Yeah, so if you had a pile of wood chips and a pile of food scraps, you would use 1 bucket of food scraps and 3 buckets of wood chips.
And lastly, you talked about 3 days being not enough time for turning recommendations, but what is the recommended time
I
that
was
you
just making
should?
this point, that's too soon.
I know, so what is the recommended time?
We would go about a week.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. We would go about a week, but 3, it was an engineering mindset, get up to 150 degrees, kill, add organisms, and they stamp that into the regulations. But really, when soil experts and everybody is really better, there's different stages that are, like seeds and things. And so about a week or so or longer, they want to build up layers and then they mix it all up and reform. But it's kind of like winemaking.
Hi, so at Sherwood Valley Band of Poe Indians, we just received one of the CalRecycle Community Composting grants. We're about to start worm composting but our maintenance department, head of the department is very concerned about rodents that would then attract snakes, also flies, like raccoons, different things getting into the compost. And so we're going with a very enclosed system to try to address that issue, but I'm wondering if there's any other tips or tricks you have for, dealing with those kind of rodents or critters that would want to be attracted to it.
So for mine, I actually was also concerned about that. I've had remarkably little interest. I actually was worried about rodents. We have a lot of rodents out there. And also birds getting in, like crows and stuff coming into the pots. And surprisingly, I tarped it over as mostly, again, to protect from the elements as best as I could. But I never had any problem with birds getting in there. I did, every once in a while, there's some sort of rodent that got in there, and because I had all that cardboard down at the bottom, shoot its way up from the bottom. But it was way less than I expected, actually. I thought it was going to be a bigger problem than it was. So mine is raised off the ground a few feet, and that may be, and I'm very, I always tell people, probably tired of hearing me, but I'm very much about, like, don't build ladders for rodents anywhere. It's easy enough for them to get on top of stuff. Like, I don't leave anything leaning against it or anything like that. So that's been my solution. It's a pretty sturdy container that's elevated off the ground. I don't know if anybody else has it.
Ours is on the ground, and we've laid some wood chips kind of as a barrier, as between the ground, the raw soil, and we put some chips on the ground. We haven't had any issues. We've had no rodents, no snakes, no any of that. And I think for us, what we learned is it was just about getting that temperature up at a good temperature and as quickly as possible to get through that process. But we had the same issues, or the same concerns, but we haven't had any issues with flies. Or once in a while, you will get a crow or a bird to come down, but that's for us. It's usually when we just put something out, like if it's new. But as far as mice and that type of stuff, we've had issues with it at all.
I think we can take one more question.
And that turning process, just to answer your question, and for us, that turning process helps with keeping our road, the road supplies and everything.
Thank you for your excellent presentations. It's really great to see each of the composting projects, different stages, history, evolution of the process. So very inspiring. I wondered if, for any of you, especially for the larger scale composting operations, if any air quality monitoring data or any air quality monitoring has been done just to understand better the environmental off-gassing from composting. A lot of large scale composting operations may have some other off-gassing like VOCs associated with it. So I was just curious if anybody's done that level of detailed research with an academic partner, or if you had the equipment to monitor in the past.
We don't have large scale for ours at our farms. They do large scale for lay on the farm croplands. They use a high amount of chicken manure, so you have the smell of the chicken manure a little bit, but they're constantly working it, so it's actually not that bad. For our composting, it's not, again, ours is not large scale. Farms is a whole different, that's a whole different beast, but ours is not large scale. And I think we've got about 4,000 pounds of compost that's done and ready to go. Our air monitoring station is 50 to 100 feet away. And we haven't seen any increase in anything that we're monitoring from, but we haven't done an in-depth, study on it. But we have, there's been little effect from all the things that we're saying, or monitoring something.
We haven't done any of that. Usually we're located on a dairy or another package at another site, and we're making things cleaner than the alternative, which, you know, we've cleaned up from the deputy next to creeks and things like that. And I know when they do, in large buildings, and there's one in the Ukiah area, you have to watch because it's evolving CO2 out there, and you have employees, you know, you gotta make sure they have aeration system and sometimes even closed systems because it is evolving CO2, whereas it's out in the outside it's on the top.
Well, I want to let's give a big round. My contact information is at the bottom there. We do have quite a few resources on starting community composting programs, and I'd love to hear more stories. So please share your stories, and be forewarned,